March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's June 16, 2021 revised order. This meeting of the Berkshire Hills Regional School District School Committee will be conducted both in person and remote. In-person attendance will be limited to school committee members, superintendent, and district school administrators. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted at this time. However, the meeting may be accessed remotely through Zoom. Agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed. Those items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This meeting is being recorded by CTSB, the school committee recorder, Berkshire Record, Berkshire Edge, and Berkshire Eagle, and other members of the public. Once transcribed and approved, the minutes will be made public and posted to our website. So we're going to start the meeting with the superintendent's report. School committee will have a discussion about the proposed policy. Then we will have public comment, and then the school committee will have further discussion with a possible vote. So I'll turn it over.
Only one thing. Do you want to take attendance?
Yes, I should take attendance. Although in this format, we may not have to, but it's probably a good idea.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh, roll call.
Yeah. He is a former teacher.
I know. You can't get it on.
Oh, it's going to be a long one, Rich.
Okay. Ian Hutchinson? Here. Jason St. Peter? Here. Sean Stephen?
Yep.
Bonnie Bon Gafoni? Molly Thomas?
Here.
Bill Fields?
Here.
Diane Singer? Corey Sprague?
Here.
Rich Mahoney?
Here.
And I am present, so we are missing 2 members at this point.
Okay. Diane, if you or Bonnie are here and in the wrong group, raise your hand and I'll move you over. Okay, there's a raise your hand button on the bottom. If you're calling in, there's some way to raise your hand, but I don't.
Star 9 or star 6. I think star 9.
Okay.
Again. Star 6 will unmute you.
Let me just get this started, and I said I'd say this again. We're doing this meeting in a different format than we typically do in terms of Zoom. So we're using the webinar format. There are a total of 83 people on this call, and I thank you very much for joining us. What the webinar format does is it has us project the images of the school committee members and me, and it holds all the other participants in a separate pool. And then as we get to the point where we want to get feedback from those participants, people can raise their hand and a little thing will go up, and Steve, as the chair, will recognize you. So what you're seeing are just the school committee members and me and our 2 student school committee members, Zoe and Julian. And again, that lets us try to avoid the type of Zoom bombing incident that we had at our last meeting and that the town of West Stockbridge has had and a couple other meetings have had. Okay. So I just want to share a couple things about where we're at and what's going on. So in Berkshire County, the rates are very high. If those of you who have been doing this for a while know, we hope to have 60 cases per 100,000 over 7 days. And that was a CDC goal. And the number now is 492 cases per 100,000 in Berkshire County over the last 7 days. So that's the highest rate we've had to date. The positivity rate as reported by the CDC is 5.07%, while BHS is reporting a rate of 10%. And in different communities, it can be higher. It's hard to get a perfect number on that, particularly in our schools, because people are coming from all different communities, right? But so those two numbers are high. The last thing in this part in terms of facts are, we don't fully know the impact of the Omicron variant or ones after that, all right? So that's a little contextual stuff. For those of you who are wondering, in grades 7 to 12, which were the students who were first eligible to get vaccinated, the vaccination rate for 2 shots is about 85%. So that's really quite remarkable, and I'm very proud that we're at that point. In grades K to 6, which are the second group of eligible students, for 1 shot, and this continues to be a moving number because as people get the shots, there's a little delay before we can see it in the system. And there was a big second dose clinic this weekend, but for 1 or more shots in the younger grades, the vaccination rate is currently 50%, and it's going up. And our assumption is that people who got the first shot are going to get the second shot. And then we're hoping that people who haven't gotten any shots are getting them. The other thing is the staff vaccination rate is extraordinarily high. It's like ivory soap, and it's 99.6%. So that's really good. I know many staff are now at the point where they're several months out, so they're getting booster shots. And at some point, students will be at the point where they might also be getting booster shots. Couple other just factual things. Unvaccinated students who are deemed to be close contacts, if they are close contacts, they will quarantine for 10 days, potentially missing significant amounts of school. And it's quite possible that a unvaccinated student might be a close contact multiple times in a school year. So they might miss 10 days, and then 3 months later, they might miss another 10 days. Vaccinated students who are asymptomatic can remain in school and follow the test and stay protocol. So one big...
Peter, I've got one question for you. So what's the minimum requirements of attendance?
It's interesting, and actually I have to go back and look at it. But if you were out for 30 days, it'd be really problematic around attendance. But there's probably an exception for a medical reason. But Sean, I need to do a little research on that so I can say it precisely. Okay.
Peter, I also have a question.
Yeah.
So the children that are unvaccinated and then they have to quarantine, is that they have to quarantine for 10 days, or can they go and get tested and have a negative test result and then come back?
No, potentially they could do that too. And there are all sorts of guidelines and flowcharts around it. And I'm not going to speak to it because every time I do, I miss it up a little bit and then the nurses correct me. You can do that, but you have to wait a little bit for the incubation period. So it's not like you get exposed and you can get a test the next day. I think you have to wait 4 days. And then the turnaround on the test is a couple days anyway. And it's been challenging for people to schedule tests sort of on demand. So I'm not sure the 10 days to exaggerate, the 10 days are a pretty good likelihood.
In summary, being vaccinated dramatically cuts down on the rate of absences in the event of a close contact.
Yeah. Oh, that's well said. Let me go a little bit further down. As you saw in the packet, the proposed policy has 2 parts, and one of the things I think is important, and part of why I'm saying this at the beginning of the meeting, is as we listen and get feedback around this. I want people to be clear about what they're giving feedback around. So the first part of the policy, and I'll put this on the screen in a sec, but is that the school committee and schools are encouraging all age eligible students to obtain a vaccination against COVID-19. Our intent is to do everything we can to keep our schools open. All right, so we can debate, is that a mandate? Is it a recommendation? And this is a strong consideration. It's just shy of a mandate, and it's strongly encouraging everybody to get vaccinated. If a family chooses not to vaccinate their child, they will not be excluded from school. We can't exclude people from school. So you get vaccinated, you come to school. You don't get vaccinated, and you come to school. Okay, so everybody's clear on the first part. The second part of the proposed policy, and this is what I'm going to update in a minute, was originally the recommendation was that unvaccinated students after January 3rd would not be allowed to take part in extracurricular activities, including sports, government, performing arts, clubs, and things that meet outside of the school day, including school-sponsored events. After getting a lot of feedback on this, what I'd like to do and amend, and this came up a little bit at the last meeting, but as educators, our primary goal is to engage students in meaningful learning opportunities, right? To meet them where they are, and some of those opportunities are academic in nature, and some of those opportunities are non-academic in nature. And then there are a bunch that are in the middle that are like quasi-academic. The more I thought on this, the more I felt uncomfortable. Just hang on a second. Okay. The more I thought about this, the more I felt uncomfortable around excluding students from extracurricular activities. So I am amending my proposed policy to say that unvaccinated students must participate in weekly pool testing to participate in all these extracurricular activities. And that's really consistent with our current practice and what we decided earlier in the year. I would very much, and I'll share that visual in a sec, but I would very much like us to get to an 85% vaccination rate across all three schools. I'd even like us to get to a 90% vaccination rate. I think if we do that and continue to follow the other protocols around masking, we can get there. I know in a little bit, as we hear from people, folks are gonna argue on both sides of this issue, and some people will say, this goes too far, this doesn't go far enough. I like the first part, I don't like the second part, but this is where I am now. Let me share the screen so people can see the differences.
Can I just ask what the policy we currently have around pool testing to participate in extracurricular activities, unvaccinated students already have to do pool testing weekly, right?
Correct.
So where does this vaccine almost mandate change from that?
The second part doesn't change at all, right? The first part is, I think, a much stronger statement that we want everybody to get vaccinated.
Well, you're sharing the screen just for the edification of the school committee. What we're going to do now when we have a discussion, we're going to try to do this without raising hands, I think we're all either in the same room or there's a few on Zoom. I think we can not talk over each other, and let's see if we can do it by just having a discussion. And if that works, terrific.
If it doesn't, we'll go to the raising of the hand, but that seems a little bit more formal since we're on the webinar format. I think we can do it that way.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm having a little problem sharing the screen. The two changes again are from the second paragraph of the first one. Instead of it saying students will not be allowed to take part in unvaccinated students will not be allowed to take part in extracurricular activities, and then the long list, it's just changed to unvaccinated students must participate in weekly pool testing. The other thing I want to be clear about too, and I think for many people this fell through the cracks. There are two things within the state that one can do if one feels strongly about not being vaccinated. One could go to your healthcare provider and request in writing medical exemption, right? And that would be tied to some medical condition. Or the other one you can do, and there's lots of examples on this, is you can attest that it's your sincerely held belief to not be vaccinated. And that's the one that is called the religious exemption, though in fact it may not be particularly religious.
Try now. Steve said you should be able to share the screen.
No. Thanks, Steve. For some reason, it's not letting me do it. It's seeing other things, but unlike the other version we use, it's not seeing stuff on my desktop.
So, I mean, the way I'm looking at this is basically we're not changing any policy at all. We already require kids to be pool tested before they do extracurriculars. So what's changing in our policy?
The only thing that's changing is the first part where we're stating quite definitively that we want everybody to get vaccinated. We weren't able to say that before because when we last talked about this, students in grade or students age 5 to 11 were not eligible to get vaccinated.
So we're basically suggesting that they do this.
Yeah, I mean, the word I used was
it's literally not a policy because you're suggesting that they do it.
I actually totally disagree, and I totally rethought my approach to this since the last time we met. And I think we've gone totally the wrong way down the track by us as the school committee talking about consequences and punishments and incentives. I don't think that's our role. The school committee, all we do is set policy. How that is implemented is done through rules and procedures and things done by the administration. If you go through our policy, we have a policy that says you can't haze people. It doesn't say what the punishment is or what the consequences of that are. It says you can't consume alcohol on school grounds. It doesn't say what the punishment or consequences of that are. It says you can't smoke tobacco on school grounds. It doesn't say what the punishment and consequences of that are. All our policies are statements of positions. And that's really all we should be doing. I would like to, either if we endorse a policy tonight, the policy that everybody must get vaccinated, how that is implemented and carried out and how non-compliance is dealt with should be for this board. It should be for the administration. And actually, if you go through all of our policies, the one about alcohol says shall be referred to the principal for discipline, but it doesn't say what the discipline is. And the vaccine one, the existing vaccine ones, and that just echoes state law because the consequence is a state law consequence, not a policy consequence. So I think Peter did a good job walking through the sections. I'm willing to just vote on paragraph 1 and leave it at that. I think anything beyond that is kind of exceeding our role. I think Peter does a good job of consulting with us and using us as representatives of the community to get the pulse of what policy should be like. A great example of that is, we voted to say that drop off before school at the high school has to be done at the lower parking lot. we left compliance to the administration. A couple of weeks ago, they came back, said they're having some compliance issues, so they're gonna do something. I understand that compliance issue worked, but that's an administration level thing. So I just feel like, and I've been part of it for the past few weeks, we've gotten off track on the consequences of compliance. I think we just should decide whether it's the policy of the Berkshire Hills Regional School District that everyone be vaccinated. And then let the chips fall, where it may.
And all we can do legally is encourage.
Well, Rich, again, it's not a policy that everybody should be vaccinated. It's a suggestion.
It's our policy that it's a suggestion.
Yeah, it's all, you're splitting hairs.
So does every violation of policy require expulsion from school? To my decision, none of them do. You can just
I never said that.
Yeah, probably not.
Maybe 3 weeks.
So what I'd like to do, and I'm sorry I couldn't share that one slide. I want to share two other pieces of information. One is when we scheduled this meeting, I reached out to people in the community, and I received a number of emails about this. Those emails are included in our packet, and they're on our website, and people can read them. And I had to stop at a certain point because people are like sending me emails right now, and I'm really excited to get the emails, but at like 5:45, I stopped counting. But to date, we've received 40 emails. 27 of the emails support the policy in some way, shape, or form, and 13 of them don't. So I just wanted to share that number. And then there's one other thing I wanted to share, or really two things. One is in the context of the emails we shared all the letters we got because that's part of the democratic process to not censor things, to not pull stuff out. But there's certainly some emails that neither I nor the school committee endorses. And some of them I think are actually quite offensive, using the Holocaust analogy. And I'm flagging those particularly, and I'm not going after the people who wrote them, but I'm flagging the language around it because I think it's problematic. Those comments can be seen as anti-Semitic. They can be seen as trivializing a horrific time in our history. And they might also demonstrate a lack of understanding of history. As we get to the meeting tonight, and I'll share some hopeful ground rules around that, I just want to flag that if somebody goes down some hole talking about that either Steve or I will call them out on that, because in many contexts it's actually seen as hate speech. So let me go over these, and then Steve can add a little more. In terms of ground rules, it's really important, particularly in this webinar format, that people identify themselves, state their address and their connection to the schools. As we articulated this, we're hoping to hear from students, parents or families, staff, residents of our three towns, Great Barrington, Stockbridge, and West Stockbridge, and obviously residents of other towns whose kids are enrolled in our schools, right? But if you're from like Iowa, I appreciate that you figured out this meeting was going on, but I think we very much want to hear from our own people who are directly connected. Participants will be afforded up to 3 minutes to speak. And there are now 117 people in, so if everybody goes 3 minutes, we're going to have a very long meeting, but we're here for that, right? But if you could say it in 2 minutes instead of 3, that's great. If you need the 3 minutes, go ahead. Try to be concise and not repetitive, and try to be civil in your tone and approach. This is a public health issue, but it's also very much a political issue. And then the school committee will hear your feedback, then I think they'll talk amongst themselves some more, and they might potentially vote tonight on this, or they might decide to continue it to our next meeting, which is a week from Thursday. Steve, did I?
Yep, you got everything. I'll repeat it again when we're ready to allow the public to come in. So let's start with the school committee discussion. Don't be shy. Someone started.
I think it's a good idea to require immunizations for students, for everyone who's in the schools.
Diane?
Is that Diane? There it is.
Yes. I'm sorry. What was the question?
No, I thought you wanted to speak, so I was just recognizing you because.
No, not yet.
Other school committee members?
I agree, that's a good idea, and I kind of already made my main point, but I think we should just set the policy that everyone should be vaccinated. And just like every other policy in the book, and let the administration deal with compliance or non-compliance in a way that's fair to everyone, which I totally trust them to do.
Yes. Under law, we can't require it, but we can have consequences. And it doesn't necessarily mean that those consequences are complete exclusion, which is what we're trying to not do in our day-to-day life in school.
And I can also say that in my term on the school committee, I have seen Peter, and Chrissy in particular, and Ben in most particular, be very effective in changing the conduct and culture at their schools with honey rather than vinegar, with setting good examples and giving people good information rather than just slapping people on the wrist. This may need some degree of both, but I don't want this to turn into a negative conversation. What are we going to do to this person? What are we going to do to that person? I think our administrators, and that's why they're here, they're incredibly successful at shaping the activities of young people. And I see no reason why it wouldn't apply in this case.
I like the proposed change in the second part. I agree with Peter. Extracurricular activities are very important for many kids. I know kids who come to school because they want to play sports or they want to be in the play. That's the way students are. A lot of students. We have a high percentage of students in extracurriculars. So I like that fact that we're not going to be excluding them if they're unvaccinated. My own particular belief, along with Ann, I think everybody should be vaccinated. I would go so far as saying that we should mandate it, but I know that that cannot be done. I am certainly willing to listen to what people have to say, but that's where I am right now.
Other school committee members?
I agree and think that everyone should be vaccinated. My concern, I certainly do not want to be excluding anyone on the extracurricular side, but I also think realistically, there are a lot more chances for exposure with extracurricular activities, and so the stakes get that much higher. Masks are not worn, distance is not kept, there are buses, there are carpools, there is eating, there's a lot of stuff happening, and especially with the current variant and looking at the risk of transmission, I think we're setting ourselves up for some real problems if we're not buckling down on that side. And so as much as I certainly do not want to exclude, if there's another way to do this, and happy, it looks like administration is on, happy to do that. I certainly don't want to be in a position to tell administration what to do, and if they've got ideas and if they've thought through this, I would like to hear it. But I will say, it's what's happening after school is vastly different from what's happening during the school hours in terms of sanitizing, mask wearing, distancing.
Well, mask wearing should be happening after school.
It's not.
Then that's, the administration has to take care
Well,
of
it
it.
wasn't required. Outdoor sports, it wasn't required.
What's that?
Outdoor sports, it wasn't
No,
required.
but indoors it is.
But I don't think, Corey, you're just speaking about after school within school, but you might also be talking about 7 p.m. till midnight when they're not even under our watch. They're just doing their own, people are doing their own things.
in terms of encouraging people to be safer and to be testing and to be, I don't understand your question.
No, maybe I misunderstood, right? During the school day, we have a very high compliance rate with people wearing masks. In after-school athletics, it drops a little bit because people sweat and they need to take down their mask to rub their nose. But after practice, people may go out to dinner together and they all pile in a car and likely nobody's wearing a mask.
Yep.
I think that the nature of extracurriculars too is that they're much more interactive than sitting at desks spaced apart. So there is increased risk of transmission just with the activities that are happening.
So my concern is with sports, especially now, because now we are traveling, quite far into different communities. So our athletes that are doing this, they're exposed to, so many more people. They could be potentially bringing it back to our student body, or they could be giving it to multiple schools in 1 week. So that's the part that I get very nervous at, is you could have one of our students who is positive and visit and play against 3 other schools in 1 week and could have exposed hundreds of people. So I'm more nervous on that end. Is I think the vaccination, I will say, I think our athletes represent our school district, to protect our school district and to protect the community and the other communities. I think they should be vaccinated. That's a privilege.
I agree.
It's interesting because I think when we talk about exclusion, I think unfortunately, if we don't require vaccinations, which we can't require, but if we don't require for extracurricular, there's going to be self-exclusion anyways, because people are going to be quarantining and missing a good deal of their activities. And maybe, hopefully, they'll change their mind at some point. But I have a feeling that by not requiring vaccination, which I understand why we wouldn't, for extracurriculars, there's going to be a number of people who will not be playing their full season. It's just the way it's going to be.
I've had coaches express that to me, that they are supportive of this because they're sick of losing people for 10 days. If you're putting a game plan and or in the play, you lose your star for 10 days because they're close contact. They have.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between the different age levels, because we have no sports teams under 9th grade. So requiring it for sports teams is not going to exclude any 4th graders from taking, because I think Project Connection, there's a lot more control because they're within the school system still, and so I shouldn't say that, they're all within the school system, but for Project Connection, they're mostly in classrooms now or in the gym. So supervised by teachers and school personnel. So it might be different for things like Project Connection than for things like varsity sports, which we all know or any kind of sports are completely different from classroom work. So,
I mean, an interesting, I don't know if it's a contradiction or a tension or just predicament is, well, the school district doesn't have youth athletics below 9th grade. There are all these youth community athletic programs, and many of them are travel groups. And last year, a good portion of our time around positive cases and sort of tracking where everything originated from is very hard, but youth athletics, traveling to competitions contributed to many positive cases. And there's a whole New Hampshire hockey thing where all those teams from Massachusetts went up there. We had some tournaments and basketball tournaments in Connecticut that likely resulted in a number of positive cases.
That's not.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, when you go to play sports, if you're not vaccinated, at this point, if you're not vaccinated, you're not going to play sports in a private setting. They're going to prevent you from doing that. You're going to need to be vaccinated. Private schools, private clubs for soccer, skiing, all that is going to require vaccinations. So where do you go from there?
Well, I think we can start with differentiating between sports where you're traveling to another school or they're coming to us. And I don't even know what you do about teams coming to play at our gym. You know, I don't know where we can draw the line in terms of if we did something like decide that everybody who enters the school building should be able to prove that they're vaccinated. We're going to have trouble with sports and teams coming with their supporters. There's an awful lot of hurdles and roadblocks here.
Well, I think you brought up 2 points, and one is requiring student athletes coming to our gym to be vaccinated, which I agree is very problematic. Probably could put an end to some of our games. The other is requiring spectators to be vaccinated, which is not for tonight, but I don't think that's as problematic. I think that's more doable. But there is 2 parts to that. You're right. Let me just say this. There's a couple of people with their hands up. I'm not ignoring you. There will be time for public comment. Leave your hands up and you'll get recognized at the beginning in public comment.
I think we can only focus on our children and who we're responsible for. And we're responsible for our student body. And if our student body, we have members going to other communities, it's a responsibility we take to protect our community as a whole.
And if we're specifically focused on athletics, the MIA has come out with a unanimous 20-0 ruling to strongly encourage vaccines. Again, I don't think they could go so far as to require, but it was very obvious what their intent was with their vaccinations for athletes.
Hey, Corey, I think you shared it with me. I think it was 20-1.
Okay.
So one dissenting opinion.
Other school committee members?
This is Diane.
Yes, please.
Are we able to know how high the percentage of vaccinated kids on each team will be?
Nope.
No, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, but very, very much. I've not done that.
Our teams. but-
Our teams.
Our team.
You know,
Yeah, but our teams,
Not-
kids will be affected by this policy. Yeah.
I could, if I got rosters of every single team, I could calculate that. It might take me a little while, but.
Yeah, but Peter, that's not teams that are coming into the school.
No, only our own teams, yeah.
Exactly. So it's pretty much moot.
Right.
Well, I think it's not totally, what that would do, and I'm not suggesting we need that or don't need that, what that would do would tell us how big of an effect it would have on our athletics. I mean, if let's say sport A, only 10% of the kids were vaccinated, highly unlikely with an 85% rate, that team's probably not going to go if we mandate vaccinations. Assuming the kids have had every opportunity to be vaccinated by now, they are not getting vaccinated for a reason, a personal reason. Go ahead, Diane.
Well, the thing is, I think that running a school, we have a responsibility to protect not only our students, but anybody they come into contact with, which would be our staff and their families also. And it would be good to know how much of a risk all of this will be. But I consider the vaccine to be important in keeping people out of the hospital. It certainly doesn't mean that you won't get COVID, but it will mean that there's less spread, and it'll certainly mean that hopefully you won't die. So when the risk is death, I think it's important to have as many people vaccinated as possible when you know they're going to be exposed to other people. And I would really like to know those numbers, what the relative risk is. If it's 1 kid or if it's 5 kids, or it just feels like a big unknown to me. Because if there are kids coming in that are unvaccinated, but all of our kids are vaccinated, I would feel a little bit better about that than if we had unvaccinated kids on teams being exposed to unvaccinated kids from other places.
Yeah, let me reach out to some colleague superintendents and see what people are doing. I think, and I'm not 100% sure of this, I think our vaccination rate, at least at the high school level, is one of the higher ones around. And I don't know how facile every district is with looking at that data.
But I think what Diane is saying, which is a good point, and I hadn't thought of, if our athletes were close to 100% vaccinated, the chance of spread within the school is much less. If the teams we're playing aren't close to 100% vaccinated.
Yeah, no.
On two layers, because it's less likely that our athletes get it from an opposing athlete, and even if they do, if they are vaccinated, it's far less likely they transmit it within our school.
And in terms of preventing spread transmission, the other thing that would be helpful again would be the athletes all doing weekly pool testing.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The athletes all doing weekly pool testing.
My question on pool testing, and from pool testing, we can't tell individuals.
No, we
But
can't.
then we can after the pool test.
Right, so what we're doing now in all three schools is this double swab thing. So we swab them once for the pool and we swab them a second time individually. And then if one of the 10 people in the pool tests positive, then the lab runs the individual 10 samples like a day later, and then we know who the students are.
Anyone else before I open this up to the public? Before we'll come back to more discussion, of course.
Okay, so it looks like there are 7 people.
So far, so let me give a few reminders. You need to state your name and address. I'll give you up to 3 minutes. Please don't repeat what others have said or try not to. Be respectful. And when you give your name and address, we need to know your connection to the district. If you're a parent, a student, a staff member, a resident of the 3 towns, because as Dr. Dillon said, what we really want to hear from is that cohort of people. We're not here to settle a national problem. We're here to deal with our students. So let's start with, and a lot of you have either nicknames or abbreviated names, so I'm going to do the best I can. So the first one is ADIDIO.
Good evening, board members. Andrew and Christina Didio. We live on Route 41. We have 2 boys in Muddy Brook Elementary. I wanted to kind of start with, there's a lot of discussion about, protection and transmission based on vaccination. And I think it's important to note transmission of the disease is not reduced significantly by vaccination. It's been reported by Dr. Fauci as recently as last week that getting vaccinated does not preclude you from getting COVID, from transmitting COVID. There's discussion about reduced viral load, which in my background in immunology and genetics, when you've got a viral load that's sufficient to have you be symptomatic, that means that the virus is strong enough, you have enough of a viral load in your system to where it becomes symptomatic. If you're asymptomatic, that means that your immune system is suppressing the virus sufficient to where you don't have symptoms. The other thing that we know is that younger individuals, specifically data-driven 0 to age of 17, are asymptomatic carriers. It's been that way since prior to the vaccine. So there was discussion about quarantining those who are unvaccinated versus not quarantining those who are vaccinated, because those who are unvaccinated or even vaccinated, those who are vaccinated could be asymptomatic carriers, so they have to enter pool testing. The fact remains, whether you're vaccinated or not, you can catch COVID, test positive, and transmit the disease. Vaccination bears no difference on that, especially when it comes to viral load, because again, most kids under the age of 17, under the age of 25, based on the CDC's data, are asymptomatic, are not hospitalized, and can transmit the virus. To suggest that some of the board members suggesting the fact that you would potentially and be in favor of mandating a vaccine to a population that is asymptomatic, that does not have the viral load to transmit the virus as you would if you were symptomatic, again, per CDC and Dr. Fauci, it doesn't comport with the data. CDC in 2021, 0 to 17, number of COVID deaths in 0 to 17 was 300 that were not in combination with pneumonia out of 30,000 deaths. That's 0.01% of all deaths, not just percentage of population, that's per death. So if you die, you have a 0.01% chance of dying from COVID if you're in the age 0 to 17 in 2021. In 2020, even lower. You had a 0.004% chance of dying of COVID if you had died. That's not in the overall population. In the overall population, you had
Your 3 minutes.
0.002% chance of dying between the age of 0 to 17. I encourage anybody to go to the CDC website. They've got beautiful charts that demonstrate this. Again, that's whether you're vaccinated, unvaccinated, year 20, year 2021.
Thank you very much. Next is Jason and Lisa Baumgart.
Hi there. My name is Lisa Baumgart from Cheshire, Massachusetts. And I'm a mother of 2 amazing children currently attending the school district. I'm also a business owner and scientist in the medical field. My husband and I have been researching all the costs versus benefits of COVID-19 shots, and we have many concerns about the district considering mandating them for children. When we looked at the vaccine clinical trials for children, we personally were shocked to learn that 86% of children suffered adverse reactions, some severe, leaving many children unable to perform even the most basic daily activities. This is troubling to us since, according to the Center for Evidence-Based Medicine, children are at a near zero risk of death from COVID-19. When we looked at the U.S. vaccine adverse event reporting system, we were alarmed to find it shows many children have died and are permanently disabled in the U.S. after having the COVID-19 shot, with many now suffering from myocarditis, pericarditis, blood clotting, and other cardiac issues. VAERS is the main site the CDC has relied on for 30 years to report vaccine injuries and data. As of November 26th, the COVID vaccine adverse events in the U.S. is up to 927,000, and deaths is up to 19,500. So logically, when we, as parents, consider a risk-benefit analysis, COVID-19 shots point to a very high risk versus no benefit for children and young people. As a parent and scientist, I also cannot ignore the precautionary principle of science and medicine that dictates to first do no harm. When we considered transmission of the COVID-19 from children to adults, we reviewed many studies. One of those studies, according to the Oxford academic study, transmission of SARS-CoV-2 from children to adults is minimal, and adults in contact with children do not have a higher COVID-19 mortality. 3 scientific studies conducted by the UK government, Oxford University, and the CDC published this past August have found that COVID-19 vaccines do not work. In addition, Public Health England data shows the majority of COVID-19 deaths now are among the vaccinated and suggests that vaccines actually worsen disease. There are several preventive protocols and effective treatments available to adults and children with or without comorbidities, and the state of emergency in Massachusetts ended on June 15th, 2021. There is thus no medical or public health case for mass vaccination of children or for coercive or restrictive measures for that matter, including testing and masking. In conclusion, I respectfully ask each of you on the committee to have an open mind, to unlearn everything you have been conditioned to believe. Turn off your TV and stop blindly listening to institutional guidance. Please read the actual studies and stay consistent with the principle of science and medicine that dictates to first do no harm. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next will be Joe Roy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, my name is Joe Roy. I'm here with my wife, Mary. We live at 4 Miller Lane. We're parents of two, in West Stockbridge, and we're parents of 2 young boys who go to Muddy Brook School System. In early January of this year, our 6-year-old son, Zachary, was diagnosed with COVID-19. Within 24 hours of getting the diagnosis, his fever was over 105. Zachary was rushed to the ER with my wife in the middle of the night, while I stayed home to watch over our other son, Alex. Within an hour at the ER, measures were already taken to transfer Zachary with my wife by ambulance to Bay State Children's Hospital. Over the next few days, Zachary's condition worsened, but the staff at Bay State were working hard and tirelessly to help him. All of these doctors were also sharing Zachary's case with Boston Children's Hospital and other children's hospitals around the country in hopes of figuring out how to battle this virus with my boy. Zachary was finally diagnosed with something called MIS-C. This stands for Multiple Inflammation Syndrome in children. It is rare, but it's very serious autoimmune disease that stems from COVID-19. MIS-C was brand new at this time, and there was little to no information on the disease. Bottom line is that his immune system was fighting against his own body. Zachary's status continued to get worse, and he was transferred to the pediatric ICU. Things were really bad, and his heart rate was getting dangerously low. Zachary was white as a ghost. He slept for about 2/3 of the day. He hardly ate anything and barely had enough energy to go to the bathroom anymore. Most of the time he was awake, he was crying, saying he wanted to come home. I finally got the courage to confront one of the lead doctors and pulled him aside. I asked him the question that no parent should ever have to ask. And then he told me the answer that I was fearing. I nodded my head and went back to Zachary's bedside. Once he was asleep, I went to the bathroom, I fell on my knees on the floor and cried for about 15 minutes straight. Since only one parent was allowed to stay with Zachary, I then had to call my wife, and I sat in the bathroom floor on the phone and we cried together until no tears remained. Our boy was dying and nobody knew what to do. After 2 grueling days in the ICU of not knowing if Zachary was going to make it, the amazing, hardworking doctors and nurses were able to get the right medication to help him battle off the illness, and his blood work finally started to get better. After another full week of recovery, we were finally able to go home. I'm sharing this story today to hopefully give people perspective of what COVID can really do. Our kids are not immune to this virus. Sure, it's rare, and cases are usually mild in children, but I was there. I saw the worst of it. I saw firsthand what this virus can do to children with my own eyes. All that said, my wife and I remain practical thinkers. When the vaccine came to our kids, we were cautious and we had our reservations. We aren't doctors, we aren't scientists. So I turned to those people who saved our child's life, and I talked to them. I knew them. I knew their faces. I knew their names. And I asked them, should we get our children vaccinated? And the answer was unanimously yes. The bottom line is this: our children are overwhelmingly safer with the vaccine than without it. We support a vaccine. The last part was just thank you. Thank you for hearing our story and to express our feelings. Thank you for your consideration and doing everything you can to make a safe and healthy learning environment for our children.
Thank you. Tracy. Here, always a problem. We're gonna have to promote her to panelist because of the version of Zoom she's using.
Okay, I'll do it very quickly. If it goes wrong. If you're tricking us, Tracy, we're removing you quickly.
Tracy, are you there?
I see Tracy. He's muted though.
You have to unmute yourself.
Just gotta unmute yourself. Should be maybe on the bottom, on the left.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi, this is Andrew Ziarski and Tracy Ziarski. And we have a son, Mac and Ben, in the school system.
And just give your address.
It's Norfolk Road. New Marlboro. Yes, we deeply oppose vaccines, which studies show will in fact not mitigate risk or prevent COVID transmission. Our most concerning is the high risk of myocarditis in young males. As of today, the total of 6 countries, France, Finland, Germany, Sweden, Iceland, and Denmark, no longer recommend COVID Moderna 19 vaccines to people under the age of 30 because of the risk of developing myocarditis. The number of heart inflammation cases in the US has increased significantly within 4 months, mainly affecting young men. In June 2021, there were 200 cases of myocarditis, but by October, there were 10,304 cases. Therefore, this is a risk we are not willing to take when our children have a near zero chance of being hospitalized or dying of COVID. Actually, 99.995% is the survival rate for our children. The question I ask is, what is your end game? Is it full inoculation to make sure all schools are pre-pandemic safe? If so, this is a fallacy from the land of make-believe. Even if the vaccines were effective, which they are not, you will still be relying on natural infection or natural acquired immunity, herd immunity, which is a biological fact, as your endpoint for this infectious disease. Instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, we suggest first listening to all sides. Let's work together to effectively reduce risk by empowering all viewpoints and our God-given right to choose. Where there is risk, there must be choice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're gonna take him?
He's just an attendee again.
Yeah. Okay, let's see.
Sam?
Yeah. Sam Stolzer?
Hi, good evening. My name is Sam Stolzar. I live in Sheffield, but I'm a parent in the district of my son's school choices. Can everybody hear me? Sorry. Okay. The only thing I want to bring up is, everyone said a lot of what I was going to say, but we preach inclusion, we preach community, and by mandating vaccines and excluding children from anything, you completely go against those principles. The kids know. So if I choose not to vaccinate my son or my daughter, other kids know. That creates issues within the children, and it creates problems just in general. We're already have been pretty detrimental to our kids in terms of last year. My son was in kindergarten. He lost about half the year. And then we're going to take away activities or sports. It makes no sense to me. If the vaccine was 100% effective, but it's not. Everyone's come out with a lot of different numbers. You can look them up for yourself. The vaccine does not prevent you from getting COVID. It doesn't prevent you from spreading COVID. So to mandate it makes no sense, especially for children, where there's minimal testing and a lot of potential for things to go wrong. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Very much. Next will be Kimberly Larson.
You said? Hi, my name is Kimberly, and I live at 21 Pixley Hill in West Stockbridge. I'm here with my husband, Terrell, and we have a daughter at Muddy Brook. And I just want to bring up the idea that, while I'm vaccinated myself, my husband and I both have Pfizer vaccination, and we support science and research and vaccination. I also know that right now the only vaccination that we have for our children is Pfizer, which is an mRNA technology. And while it has definitely, proven itself effective, at least I think, against COVID, we don't know what long-term consequences may be. No human yet has had it much more than a year. And in the medical profession, there is very often side effects that were unintended. And we won't know that for many years to come. And at this moment, there's no option. So if you mandate the vaccine, you're mandating one type of vaccine that has very little research on what the long-term effects might be. But if there was, a time period to wait until there was another option, say when Johnson & Johnson finally comes out with a COVID vaccine, that's a different technology. And then parents can make a choice between the two technologies, the one that's been proven over years with other vaccines, or the one that's new and hasn't been proven by anybody in the long term because no one's had it in the long term yet. So I would like you to take that into consideration when choosing any mandates now or in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next would be Stacy Schultz.
Hello. I just want to say thank you to both the administration and the school committee for really putting our students' best interests at heart. Oh, sorry. I'm Stacy Schultz. I'm from Otis, Mass. I have children in Monument. So I want to stress that I thank you and I appreciate all the efforts and your care that you're taking in considering our children. I would like to talk about not whether who's right or wrong in what mandate we should kind of express, but to bring to light that this is really a topic about equity, access, and inclusion, and the right to choose. And if you look at page 9 of the district improvement plan, Monument Mountains School Improvement Plan on page 1, page 2 of that plan has the Monument mission. All of them stress including students equally and equitably and increasing community commitment. And in doing what you're doing in segregating the population, you are not allowing specific groups of people to participate in experiences that could help with the obesity epidemic, the substance abuse issues, and mental health crisis that has been exacerbated by COVID-19. And I'd like you to consider who is most likely to be unvaccinated. It is the people in the lower socioeconomic status brackets, minorities, people who belong to families who are less educated. These are all documented statistics, and I really don't think it's fair to tell these people who have less opportunity that they're going to have even less opportunity within our public school system to develop mentor relationships that they need, to attend the school where they might only have their family and social connections are made at that location. And if you take these opportunities and after school extracurriculars away from them, they'll be less likely to be invested in their opportunities within the school day. So I think that, showing that there's this divisiveness between the parents and within the school community about vaccination is really not showing how we can overcome differences and come together as a community. So I strongly support the amendments that Peter has put through and continuing with pool testing. I love the idea of strongly suggesting that students get vaccinated, but to restrict access to extracurriculars, I think is really doing a disservice, and it's contradictory to the mission of the school and the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Becker.
All right, can you hear me? Okay, Chris Becker, 322 North Plain Road in Hazy. I want to thank the school committee and the district for doing such a good job with our kids in the schools and for putting forward a more reasonable suggestions in regards to what they had previously been. As scientific data has shown, healthy children and adults are not part of the vulnerable population. Can they get COVID? Yes. Are they seriously harmed? 9 times out of 10, no. There are legitimate reasons why a family would decide not to vaccinate their child at this time. The major one being what the potential long-term healthcare effects would be. A 12-year-old 7th grader may well need to get an additional 136 semi-annual booster shots to age 80. No one can possibly know the long-term effects. It's impossible. The technology is just too new. Anyone who says different is not being honest. We are all very grateful for the vaccines, but vaccines, as we have come to know them, have taken in between 10 and 15 years to develop. The vaccine took only 9 months. This is a very legitimate reason why some parents would give pause to vaccinating their children. If a parent wants to vaccinate their child and has done so with the research that they feel comfortable with, that's great. If a parent doesn't want to vaccinate their child for whatever concerns they may have, we have to respect those. And I am glad that the committee and the district is going to put forward a proposal that will respect a parent's right to choose what is best for their child. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Diana Ploss.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for calling on me. My name is Diana Ploss. I'm a candidate for governor, so this is really something that.
This is not a political forum.
No, it's not political. I have two questions. It's not political.
Done. There's a rule that you have to have some connection to the district. And
I do. I do have a connection. I have relatives in the district.
Yeah, no.
Sean, can I run the meeting, please? Okay, next will be Bailey. I believe it's Jim, but I won't be so presumptuous.
Yep, Jim Bailey, Housatonic, Mass. My son Mark attends Monument Mountain Regional High School. First, I'm going to put it out there that I think our children have sacrificed a lot, an awful lot, almost too much. And to take even just one thing away from one student is asking way too much. As far as a mandate and taking things from students or having students looked at differently because they're not vaccinated. There was a prime example, your last meeting, when a student spoke on behalf of the student population. And his statement was, well, if they're not vaccinated, we can sit them at a different lunch table. Is this what we're looking at? I mean, to me, segregation should have been a thing of the past a long time ago. And respect one's privacy. Will there be any privacy, medical privacy? I mean, if you look at it, it's going to be easy to determine who's vaccinated and who's not vaccinated. Who's protecting our students' privacy? It was brought to my attention that one of the reasons we were going forward with this mandate, this proposal, was to keep us in school. We never wanted to go back to remote again. I agree, 100%. But, and I still haven't had an answer. I'm going to ask this question. Will this mandate guarantee we will never return to remote learning? Will this mandate guarantee 100% vaccination rate in our district? Will it guarantee a 1% increase? What are the guarantees? With COVID being such a fluid situation at this moment, there can be absolutely no guarantees. Well, one thing I think you should guarantee is the participation of each and every student in whatever they decide they want to participate in, vaccinated or unvaccinated. There isn't a single medical professional who will guarantee anything. I just can't see how the responsibility lays on the Berkshire Hills Regional School District to determine whether or not a child should be vaccinated. That's a parent's right. And to show so little respect towards those parents who might be a little apprehensive, I mean, come on, this is a whole new world to everybody. Anybody who doesn't...
Wrap it up, please. Your 3 minutes are up.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Next one is Francois.
Hi, My name is Mirabelle Myers. I'm actually Fran's daughter. I live at 962 Kane Southfield Road in Mill River. I'm an 8th grader at WEB Du Bois Middle School, and I believe that an extracurricular vaccine mandate would be extremely beneficial. I myself was vaccinated against COVID-19 as soon as it was available to my age group. There are several reasons I chose to get the shot. The first one is that I simply believe vaccines are a way to keep myself and those around me safe. By becoming vaccinated, you're helping protect those around you just as much as you're protecting yourself. Science has told us that high vaccination coverage would reduce COVID spread and prevent new and possibly more deadly variants from taking hold. If you want to keep your children safe, vaccinate them. And yes, we do know that healthy kids are less likely harmed by COVID-19. But the point here is that it isn't just about your kids, and it isn't just about you. It's about your 6th grader's immunocompromised classmate and your 8th grader's already sick grandmother. It's about your 7th grader's best friend who has a medical exemption and your 5th grader's baby cousin who falls below 5 years old. You wouldn't want to put them in danger, would you? I'd also like to touch on a slightly more personal aspect. The year the pandemic hit, I was in 6th grade, and the school was set to perform an original musical. The whole cast and crew had been working really hard. However, about a month before our performance date, the school was shut down, and we never got to perform. This is just one of the many activities and opportunities my peers and I never got to experience, thanks to the pandemic. Now, I know that story probably left most of you feeling pretty bummed, but there's actually an ending to this story that has the potential to be a happy one. You see, the school is now set to put on a new and adapted production of The Wizard of Oz, if all goes according to plan. However, the key phrase in that sentence is, if all goes according to plan. It's possible that without a vaccine mandate, an unvaccinated child could contract COVID-19, spread it to the rest of the cast and crew, and once again, there would be no musical. Okay, so maybe theater's not your thing. How about sports teams, after-school dances, student council, and school field trips? All of these activities are really important to kids. Just ask yours. I, for one, would like a return to normalcy. I want to be able to relish in the awkwardness of a middle school dance again. I want to hear about the basketball tournament my classmates won. I want to live my teenage life at its fullest, but I can't do that if there's too much of a risk. So I leave you with this. You can all think what you want. You can turn your nose up at people like me who are speaking out for the common welfare of our community. But what I ask you not to do is deprive your children of the normalcy they could have. Don't torture them with thoughts of what could have been, because it can be. With this mandate, there can be a path back to what it once was. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Lily Forfa.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Lily Forfa. I live in Great Barrington. I have 2 little girls in Muddy Brook. My oldest just started kindergarten this year. I do not stand for this vaccine mandate, and I really question exactly how far the school system is willing to go, basically with separating students, making them feel as though they're not accepted, because these young kids, they know what's going on. They might be young, but they entered this world not too long before it all started. They've been raised, they've been isolated. They know that there's something crazy going on, and they count as us parents to be their voice, to be their supporters, to be the ones that they can count on. And if you guys are taking our choice away with a mandate, that teaches our kids not to trust us. That takes our word away. And last time I checked, we had rights as parents. Our rights stand, and our choice is our choice. And my girl, my oldest, just started in this school. And if she gets this, we don't have enough information to see how it's going to affect them, say when they're in middle school. Then they start having issues, and gosh golly be it came from this. Who would have known? Nobody, because there's not enough research for it. So when a parent is making a choice like this, they're taking into consideration everything. Every little thing is a step into consideration as to what is happening to our children And myself as a parent, no one's taking that step away from me. No one's taking that right away from me. And a mandate does that. I disagree with it. I believe everybody has their own opinion. I have mine, you have yours. But my say with my children is my say with my children. And if I believe that they can fight this, they have the safety for it, I think they can. I myself have had COVID as an asymptomatic carrier, not one symptom of it. I am not vaccinated, and I do not intend to be vaccinated. I do not intend to vaccinate either one of my children. My youngest is 4. If this mandate goes into place, what does her first year of school look like? Segregation, left out, different. That's not normalcy. Everyone's talking about normal. That's not normal. Having everyone be able to do and participate, that's normal. And as a public school system, I think that's what we stand by. We're not private, we're public. We're open to everybody, and everybody should be included. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Kara. State your name and address, please.
Kara, Great Barrington, and I have 2 children in the school system.
Just need your last name, just for the record.
Hayden.
Thank you, Kara.
I just want to say that it's been amazing to hear a lot of people's views. I felt like kind of alone in it, but right now I'm just really proud to be in this community. I'm not for the mandate. I am vaccinated. I'm not anti-vax, but there's not enough research. And I'm going to stand up for all children to say that when you take away extracurricular activities, you're taking away a well-rounded education for our children. It's not fair. There's not enough research on this. Our children, we should be able to make, it should be our choice. And this is public school. This is having the vaccination. It is proven that you can still get it and spread it. So the fact that we are discriminating against the unvaccinated is ridiculous to me. It makes no sense. So it becomes where it's not health, it's control. And I'm not for that. These children can be in school all day, be in the same bathrooms, classrooms, lunch tables, hallways, different social groups. But then we're saying, but you know what? You can't be in, drama or sports. And I guess, it was said, well, they exert more energy. They do this. But it's just, those kids vaccinated are exerting and it can still spread. I'm not for treating, I'm all for choice. And we should have this choice. And there's things that can happen to our children that are far worse than COVID, because yes, I am sorry that that one man that talked about his son. I mean, I was in almost tears over it. That's terrible. But that's a very small percentage. But what about the people that are fighting because their child has, issues with their heart, enlarged heart, there's immune issues happening, and I just can't. I mean, these are our children and we should make our own choices, and when will it end? And that's really all I have to say. And I'm glad that there's other parents fighting for the same things that I'm thinking. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Samantha Spiridowski.
Oh, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Hi, sorry, one second. I was just feeding my kids. I'm stepping outside right now. Aiden's fork's right there. So I have a couple point of views. I am fully
Name and address, please.
I live in Housatonic, Massachusetts. I have currently a daughter in kindergarten and a son in preschool. I was affected by COVID in March of the year that it came out. My father got it. He was extremely sick, and he's still dealing with side effects from that. Then, given in November, my son, he was on quarantine because someone came positive in his class. He ended up positive as well. I'm vaccinated. My other two children are not. I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. Not one of us girls got COVID, nor did anyone else. I do strongly believe in vaccinations for adults. I will say that till my last breath. But I do not agree with the fact that you guys are pushing me to decide to vaccinate my child. I don't agree with that. Like, yes, I was very upset with hearing about the gentleman's story about his child. But I would like more information. I would like to decide for myself if I want to choose to vaccinate my child. You guys have no answer. Whether we vaccinate all of our kids 5 and up, what about preschool? They're not of age and they can't get vaccinated right now. So it doesn't stop us from going back to remote. I am lucky. I work from home. I can teach my kids at home. Many parents aren't. So if I agree to get all these kids vaccinated, there's still a chance that we're all going to end up remote anyways. And my child had COVID and he was fine. And I get it. Like, some people aren't. But again, like most parents said, you're taking away that one choice we have. Like, the bullying in Berkshire Hills is already so bad. And I had my daughter bullied on the bus. And
Can we talk about the vaccination?
What was that?
Can we just talk about the vaccination, please? You'll be glad
Yes,
to talk
but
about
I'm
that.
saying, but you're also agreeing to segregate children. So the bullying is already bad in Berkshire Hills. So then a parent decides not to vaccinate their child. What's to stop them from being bullied again? You guys need to put into aspect of all parents' decisions. And yes, you can support it and you can advise it, but it's not your choice. Because I'm guaranteeing you, if you guys decide to do this mandate, there are going to be a lot of parents who are going to be against it. And it's going to be a real big issue. Like,
Your time is up, so just please wrap up.
I'm all done. I just want you guys to think about that.
Thank you very much.
Bill, I think it's your sound. It's still on.
Yeah, it is. Neil and Nina DeLuca?
No?
Or your phone, maybe?
Hi, Neil, Nina DeLuca, Lenox, Mass here. Thank you for, to the board for allotting us the time to share our thoughts. We have
Do you have someone in the school district? Thank you.
Yes, we do. I was getting there. We have two children. We have 2 children attending the school in 8th and 10th grade. And for transparency, neither of them are vaccinated. We are not anti-vaxxers by any means. My wife and I are both fully vaccinated. We made a decision regarding our children's health, just as other parents did for theirs. We've read the proposal, and while the intention might be well-meaning, we feel it's actually non-inclusive, not welcoming, and frankly, is the textbook definition of discrimination. So many children have been negatively affected by the pandemic, each individual in different ways. To add insult to injury, we're now going to punish them and treat them as outcasts? Unvaccinated kids are tested regularly and wear masks when and where it's required. Right now, they can go outside maskless, be in a room with around 50 kids, eating and talking maskless, and while not even being 3 feet apart, but per this proposal, can't play tennis, an outdoor sport where the players are well beyond 10 feet apart. It makes no sense. We should stop moving the goalposts. Kids are the least affected group when it comes to COVID, unless they have underlying health conditions that place them in a higher risk category. Whether you're vaccinated or not, you can contract and transmit it to others. Stigmatizing certain children can't possibly be the outcome we want as a community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next is Joshua Briggs.
Hi there, Joshua Briggs. I live in Tyringham, Massachusetts on Main Road. I have 3 children in the district, 1 at the elementary school, 2 at the middle school. So I am, in addition to being a parent and a community member, I am the director of the middle school musical. And I want to talk about why I think a vaccine mandate and vaccination in general for our entire population is a really good decision. And to be crystal clear, it breaks my heart to think of any student not being able to participate because of the mandate. Our policy is to be very open. Anyone who tries out for our show gets in, and no one knows better than I do how transformative an experience like this can be. I won't go into the details, but when I was this age, I can unequivocally say that participating in theater saved my life. But the thing is, this is not about my feelings, and it is not about the feelings of one child or one family. This is about our community. It is our shared responsibility to protect everyone in our community. So I'm going to talk about a member of our team that I'm not going to. She said I could use her name, but I know that we redacted things in the letter, so I'll just do the same here. But this member of our community, member of our team who works on these shows, is a choreographer, and she does such remarkable works with our students. Not only is it professional and inspiring, she transforms their lives. She sets an extraordinarily high bar for them and then guarantees that they jump right over it. I have seen what happens to students who are working in her care and what it does for them. This person is immunocompromised. When the pandemic became serious, back when it started, she had to walk out of her rehearsals and has not stepped foot in our school since. She has been in quarantine for 2 years. She has a daughter who has become a professional musician who she has not been able to see perform live. This is the person that I am thinking of when I think about why we all need to get vaccinated and we need to take whatever steps we can, including mandates, to guarantee that all of us are vaccinated, not to protect me, not to protect my kids, but to protect her. For us, COVID has been an extreme inconvenience. For her, it is a daily life or death situation. She's actually coming back to work with us. She is going to be working remotely. She's going to be working on video because we would never, ever, ever put her at risk. She would never put herself at risk. But she is coming to do this because she cares so much about the kids. But all of the steps that we're going to take to protect her, those can't exist in the world unless we all get vaccinated. This is not just about one of us, it's about all of us. If we can get the overall vaccination rates high enough, we can make this go away. If not, it's going to hang around forever. And this person who has dedicated herself to our students, our community, is going to have to continue to be isolated.
Thank you very much. The next one, we're only allowed to speak once.
So
This may be Jason.
It's Jason. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was gonna, that was my assumption. So Jason Baumgart, go right ahead. Name and address, the record.
Hello, this is Jason Baumgart. I live in Cheshire. I have 2 boys attending Monument Mountain High School. This is a tough thing for all of us to talk about. They're tough choices. For any of us to think that we know all of the answers and know the right thing to do is naive. We all need to keep an open mind. Joe Biden's mandates have been blocked by the courts because they are unconstitutional. Private companies and hospitals all over the country are abandoning their efforts to mandate the vaccine as they figure out that many of their workers will simply not stand for it. Why would our school district or any business or local government feel they have the right or the ability to attempt to mandate this jab, especially for children who are in the lowest risk category? The facts are clear. At best, the vaccine only reduces symptoms of COVID-19. the disease you get from being infected by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. It does not make you immune to or prevent you from getting infected or transmitting the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Knowing this, what does a mandate accomplish? Does not stop the spread. This is the reason back in September, the CDC had to dumb down the definition of what a vaccine is. No longer must a vaccine provide immunity to a disease, like they always have, but now they merely only have to give you antibodies against the disease. We've all been misled from the start of this pandemic to believe the vaccine would give you immunity and would stop the spread. This is simply not true. Where is the school board getting their information that supports your policy? It does not seem to be correct. There's no proof that an unvaccinated child has a higher likelihood of being infected with SARS-CoV-2 than a vaccinated. Therefore, there's no justification for unvaccinated children to be treated differently when it comes to mask wearing or testing. To single them out and treat them differently is medical discrimination and is not acceptable. Requiring that unvaccinated kids undergo pool testing weekly in order to participate in extracurricular activities is misguided and discriminatory. Unless the schools committee can support the implementation of their policies with facts about its effectiveness of stopping the spread of the virus within the school, and justify with facts why it is acceptable to discriminate against unvaccinated children and enforce unnecessary measures, they cannot institute these discriminatory rules against unvaccinated kids. Facts, not guidance. For the school to state they're following guidance from some other organization as justification for a mandate is totally unacceptable. It is simply the outsourcing of critical thinking and decision-making. If the so-called guidance is not fact-based and constitutional, why would anyone choose to follow it? Do not let irrational fear hijack your problem-solving process. Vaccines do not stop the spread, have questionable efficacy, and a questionable safety record. To mandate them for children who have minimal health risk from COVID is reckless, misguided, ineffective, and unacceptable. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Jessica Provence.
Hi, my name is Jessica Provence. I live on Old Stockbridge Road in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. I have a 10-year-old son at Du Bois Middle School, and I'm going to give great praise to the young woman that spoke. I believe her name was Mirabelle. I think she's super brave and eloquent to get up in 8th grade and say what she did. I am speaking up, not because I want to, because I find this a little uncomfortable, but I'm really concerned that so many parents on this call are suddenly scientists and experts and saying things like there's not enough research and we don't know enough and we have to wait. And I'm going to say that I'm not a scientist and I'm not an expert, but I am putting my full confidence in the experts who have put vast amounts of money and time and energy on this worldwide pandemic. And I'm trusting the scientists and I'm trusting the CDC. And my 10-year-old son got his first shot on November 9th, and he's getting his second shot this Friday. And we are absolutely thrilled about it that we have that opportunity. And every year we get our flu shot, and every year we get all the vaccines that are required. And I'm presuming that most families on this call have received have their kids have vaccinations for polio and measles and mumps and rubella and all these things that we no longer have to worry about. I think that vaccines work, and I think that you don't do them for yourself, but you do them because it's a community issue. And I hear all these families saying that mandating or requiring a vaccine to participate in after school conflicts with their right to privacy, or it says that their kids are being discriminated against. And I think that that is nonsense. This is a choice. We're all making a choice. After school programs are not some sort of right. They're an opportunity. And I also think that my son deserves the right to go to a school where he feels safe and healthy, and he's around kids who have also taken those precautions. That's our right, and that's our choice. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. We have 5 more people, and then we'll go back to the school committee. Amy, name and address, please. And the others.
Hi, my name's Amy Foster. I live on Cross Road in West Stockbridge. I wanted to thank you all for allowing me to speak. My first thing I wanted to say is, have you ever met a vaccine injured person? Because if you haven't, you're meeting one tonight. I received my COVID-19 vaccine, Pfizer lot number EW0217 on August 27th.
Ask you a question. I'm not taking your time away. Your relationship to the school district?
I have two children, one in high school and one in middle school.
Very much. Go ahead.
Thank you. I have a VAERS case number 166182-1, a CDC case with BSafe, and a Pfizer case with the Pfizer company. I have been neurologically damaged. I suffer from tremors, tachycardia, which is a heart condition. I am walking with a walker at 45 years old, unable to work at this time. I do not want my children to have this vaccine because of what it has done to me and thousands of others. In the real, not rare, if you research that, you will see there are thousands of vaccine injured from the COVID-19 vaccines. As of November 12th, there have been 2,457,386 reported adverse reactions to this COVID vaccine. There are no long-term studies on what this vaccine can do, may do, will do to our children, especially the effects on their growth, reproductive, and fertility systems. Adolescents are reporting serious COVID vaccine injuries, including neurological, cardiac, and death. COVID vaccine injury reports for ages 12 to 17 have quadrupled since May. Adolescents are dropping on fields, basketball courts, and some are dying in their sleep. They don't all recover. Also, some adolescents are suffering from blood clots and Guillain-Barré from such vaccine. The pharmaceutical manufacturing companies and government are excused from any liability concerning the adverse reactions, conditions, or death it causes. No one is willing to sign a liability form for any and all adverse reactions, injuries, conditions, including death caused by the COVID-19 vaccine. And that is admitting their lack of belief and confidence in the safety of these shots. I can no longer get any kind of vaccine. I have 5 medical experts working with me on my cases, including 3 neurologists. I will not put my children through this. It's my choice. I don't want to see them in the condition I am in or worse. The other issue is the coercion to intend to get our children vaccinated, intentionally threatening them with punishment by banning them from after-school activities and promising them a return to normalcy if they take this shot, if they adhere to this new mandate policy. This is manipulation and abuse to the rules to serve your own agenda. Staff,
Your time is up if you would wrap it up, please.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next is Lisa. Name and address, please.
My name is Lisa Fales. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, and I just had a question, if possible. I just want to know, do the schools get money for 100%?
That's the next one. We said from the beginning there were strict rules here. You need to have some connection to the school district. Stephen Boyd. Yep. Stephen Boyd.
Thank you, guys. I'll be quick. I think a lot of people have touched on some really important points, and I'll note that I think this is a very hard decision, and that as a school committee in charge of the the governance of our district. You have to make the best decision that you can with the information.
Just your address, Steve, not to interrupt, just your address, please.
I apologize. You're absolutely right. Stephen Boyd. I live on Glendale Road in West Stockbridge. I have 2 kids in the high school. You guys got to make the best decision you can with all the information that you have at the moment that you have it, in the interest of public safety in the face of a rolling pandemic and crisis that has gone on for far too long. I want to highlight that I don't think that I've heard a mandate that sounds like an ultimatum in terms of the recommendation of Dr. Dillon and the school's policy. So I think that it's important to note that I don't hear anything here that suggests you're taking away liberties or freedoms or coming into my home and telling me what I have to do. I would note that I think that as a result of a public high school having to have, or a public school district needing to ensure a culture of care, that respect and inclusion goes 2 ways, and that we are often wearing masks and getting vaccinated to protect those that are most at risk, not simply ourselves. And that while we've heard a lot of statistics from specific sources, I would caution everyone against debating stats or the science. We know that these things can be skewed in ways that are favorable to an argument, but I would note that there are 198 million people that have been vaccinated in the United States, and there is an overwhelmingly large amount, a mountain of evidence, in fact, that suggests that these are highly effective and very safe vaccines. No disrespect and a ton of empathy for those of you who have been affected adversely by them. The safety of our community has been greatly impacted to the positive because of vaccines. And lastly, I would just offer that mRNA vaccines have been in development for more than a decade. They were not invented within the last 18 months. And so I'm in support of this strong guidance as it stands today. I think that it could be even stronger, but I appreciate the decision you have to make in front of you today. Thanks for the time.
Erica Milkey.
Hi, everybody. Erica Milkey. I live on East Street in Great Barrington. I have a son in 7th grade at Du Bois Middle School. I hadn't planned on speaking, but it felt important to point out that anytime we have a decision to be made, there's 2 sides. And it depends on the wording of the email we get about the proposed debate, which side rallies more and then presents, in full force their side. And I saw this in the past year and a half whenever we were debating like a school closure, remote learning, stuff like that. And in this example, the email from Peter said that there was a potential vaccine mandate. So most people I know that are in favor of a vaccine mandate did not rally and research and present arguments because they thought that was the thing that was being proposed. And from what I can hear of these calls, the people who did rally were the people who thought their wishes were being acted against. So people who are against a COVID vaccine clearly rallied and prepared statements, as we are hearing tonight. And as Stephen pointed out, what's being proposed is totally not a mandate. No rights are being infringed upon. My blood is boiling hearing comparisons to racial segregation and racial discrimination, comparisons to the Holocaust. This is ludicrous. No one is being coerced into doing anything with what's being proposed at the moment by Peter. There's a clear plan B for folks who don't want to get vaccinated to still participate in after-school activities, and it's not a change in the policy as it exists now. So I've just been sitting here yelling at my computer. Sad that we're in webinar format and people can't see my facial expressions as people are presenting, but I would really like to thank the 8th grade student who presented, Stephen, Joshua Briggs, and Jessica, for presenting just kind of like a flip side. We're not even talking about an actual mandate here, which would be a whole separate level of conversation. This is just a suggestion. And yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Next,
People keep putting their hands up.
Yeah.
There's one more left on when you said 5,
Yeah.
you cut it off.
yeah, so, because I'm going to allow no one past now. Anyone who has their hand up will be allowed to talk, and that's it. We've used up most of our time, and I asked the people who are left to use less than their 3 minutes. And I know Rich is gonna scream at me afterwards, but.
Now another person put their hand up.
No, we're not going to take anyone else.
I make a motion that any further commentary be limited to 1 minute.
Jessica Spear Holmes. I'm old, I didn't hear a word you said.
Hi, this is Alistair Holmes. I'm here with Jessica Spear Holmes. We live on Hollenbeck in Great Barrington, and we have 3 kids in the school district. I would just like to put our support behind the vaccine mandate. I'm a pediatric critical care nurse, and I've seen firsthand what COVID has done to both children and adults, and it seems very obvious to me that it's the right thing for the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next would be Rabbi Gordon. There it is. Go right ahead.
Hi there, Jody Gordon is just fine for tonight. I am a parent of 2 children at Moneybrook. We live on West Park Street in Lee. Both of our girls in kindergarten and 2nd grade are now already fully vaccinated. So the few points I want to add to this conversation tonight are first, that vaccine mandates simply are part of the social contract. It's how we protect one another. Vaccines are mandated to send children to school already. It's how we can send our kids to school without fear of contracting polio or measles. Last year, the district mandated flu vaccines, all of which is to say this is not new or revolutionary in any way. In response to the question of choices do have consequences. I would be in favor of requiring weekly pool testing for any unvaccinated students attending school, not just after school activities. And as a parent, I value the expertise of doctors and scientists, which I am not. Jessica Provence already made this point quite eloquently. Last thing I want to share, and this is anecdotally, I am responsible for a supplemental school program in Great Barrington. We have already passed a vaccine mandate for the 80+ eligible students in our program. We were guided by public health experts, including an infectious disease doctor who works at Hartford Children's Hospital, in making this decision. And the point is this: we are finally at a point in this pandemic where we have the opportunity to not just minimize risk of infection, but now to mitigate the risk of disruption to our day-to-day lives by having our kids dinged as close contacts and missing school. So my hope for tonight is that Berkshire Hills will make the decision to add the COVID-19 vaccine to the list of already required vaccines. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Next is Mark Sprague.
Did you miss Rebecca?
Rebecca Honig, I'm sorry. Yes, I did.
Thank you. Rebecca Honig, 13 Main Road, Tyringham, Massachusetts. 3 children in the district, all of them fully vaccinated. I wasn't going to speak because I submitted a letter, but I cannot let the Roy family feel like they are a minority in this community in wanting a mandate. And I want you to know that you are surrounded by people who are going to do everything they can to make sure that what happened to your son does not happen to any other children in our community. I believe we have a responsibility to our community to vaccinate our children, and that if we choose not to, there are consequences, and those consequences, unfortunately, might need to be that your child cannot participate in community activities, especially community activities that can't follow the same social distancing protocols and masking protocols that school follows. And I believe that this is a privilege to participate in these. I believe that school is a right, but we are not, there's no threat here to take away that right. This is simply an act to ensure the safety and wellness of our community, and I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mark Sprague.
Hey guys, how are you this evening? So my name is Mark Sprague. I am in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. I have 2 children in the high school. very difficult decision you guys have ahead of you. First of all, I just want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody for their stories tonight. I actually am a surgeon, and I have the conversation with patients all the time about risks and benefits, and certainly have the conversation about no guarantees. So just real briefly, what we have to do here is we have to, as a community, look at the risks and the benefits of the entire situation. We've had some very powerful stories of people that have been negatively affected by vaccines. And we've had some very powerful stories of people that have had children or themselves have had COVID. But we have to look at the big picture, and we have to listen to the experts. And if you just simplify this and listen to the experts, if you listen to the American Academy of Pediatricians, if you listen to the CDC, their recommendations tell us that we should be vaccinating everybody. Everybody ages 5 and older recommended to get the vaccine. Every adult recommended to get the vaccine. Boosters recommended. And we are where we are now because of time passage, but also largely due to the vaccine. So I don't want to offend anybody who is a scientist or has input at this and has read the science. But we have to remember that the people that are the American Academy of Pediatricians and the CDC, these are people just like us that have relatives and that have that have something at stake as well. These are scientists, expert panels, and they have given us their recommendations. So I fully support it. You guys, I really appreciate all the work of the school committee. Good luck to you. You've got some hard decisions to make, but I encourage people, know there are no guarantees, and listen to the experts and get the vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you. Carla Rodriguez.
Yes, hi. Thanks for taking time to listen. My name is Carla. I have 3 children within the school system. I wasn't prepared. We live in West Stockbridge. I wasn't prepared to speak. My child sitting next to me actually encouraged me to speak up and say, Mom, I gotta say, I really want to keep participating in extracurricular activities. I find that it isn't fair if I make the choice for my family to be vaccinated or not, to take away the extracurricular activities that are actually helping students who are going through enough already with masks, social distancing, not having play dates. I feel like we shouldn't take this away. It seems like a punishment to me. And we were doing extracurricular activities in the spring. We were with other students, and I still have yet to find a case where it was spread within a team or within the cafeteria when they're eating or socializing. I have yet to find out of cases where it's spread so thus far. So I really just hope that you guys listen and take our comments and our feelings, our beliefs into consideration. And I thank you for your time and for everyone that spoke up. Everyone has great comments, great beliefs. So I don't envy you in precision right now. It's going to be tough. Thank you.
Thank you. There are 4 more people with their hands up, and that's all I'm taking. And I'm going to ask them to keep it as short as possible. It's been a long night. So Sylvia.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Ovchukovska, and I have a daughter in the kindergarten. I live in 4 Meadow Street in Housatonic. I noticed nobody mentioned natural immunity. Some children had the COVID already. Are they going to be able to participate or not? We know this is an experimental vaccine, and there are no long-term studies. So what's going to happen next year? Are you going to be requiring boosters, and when are the boosters going to end, if ever? The next thing is we do teach our kids that there are consequences to their actions. And are you going to be in any way compensating the school if any of the children become sick due to receiving the vaccine? And if you really want to improve the health of the children, then maybe we should offer healthier food, and also encourage going outside, maybe talk to families about healthier lifestyles, not just shooting them with experimental vaccines. And that is a very hard decision for you to make. And I pray that you really have the children at heart and their best education, not necessarily being guided, but what's the main media telling you. And also, last question, it might sound weird, but does any of the board members have stock in the pharmaceutical companies? Because that would be very interesting if that's also what you're being guided by. Thank you.
Don't even go there. Lisa J.
You missed
I'm going to go there. Do not even.
Oh,
think
no, John, you're not. Absolutely not. We're here to listen.
Thank you
And
so much.
Emily. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I have two questions.
I need your name.
I'm currently in West Stockbridge, and I'm wondering if you are willing to sign a liability waiver. And I
what's your-
on the agenda of the Mass Association of School Associations.
Okay, thank you very much. Who did I miss? Emily.
Emily.
Hi. So my name's Emily. I'm not comfortable giving my address, but my nephews attend Muddy Brook. Unfortunately to say, I believe regardless of the concerns you highlight.
Emily. That's the rules. Okay, last, Rebecca Gold.
Okay, hi, Rebecca Gold. I'm at 1 Barrington Place in Great Barrington. I've got 3 children in the district, 1 at each school. And I was not planning on speaking tonight either. And it's been very hard to think about how to speak coherently after listening to everything. But I will try to do that, and I will try to keep this brief. Basically, what I'm hoping is that the school committee will resume the discussion they were having before all of these comments came in from the public. I think the track you were on was a good one, and I think it represents the feeling and the thoughts and beliefs that most parents in the district feel. We've had vaccine mandates in the state since the 1800s. And people have been protesting them since that time as well. These times call for bravery, and most parents, I think, hope that the school committee will continue to lead with the bravery they have shown with mask mandates in the school, with social distancing. All of the caution that you have exercised is what most parents really appreciate. And a COVID vaccine mandate is the logical next step. And one real small detail, the discussion you were having was really focused on sports, but I have a son who's in band, and I am very concerned about all the breathing that happens in that windowless, stuffy room. So please don't forget about musicians and other extracurriculars. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So that's all the comments we're taking this evening. I realize other people have put their hands up, but we've had enough. I just have a couple things to say before we start speaking. And Sean, I actually agree with you, but it wasn't the time. Anyone who challenges the ethics of this school committee would need to go through me and Dr. Dillon, because these are really hardworking people who get paid zero and put in an inordinate amount of hours, including tonight. And so you can say what you want, you can have your beliefs, you can have your scientific views, which are different from people to people, different than night and day. But please don't challenge the ethics of this school committee unless you have some really strong evidence, which you will not have for this school committee. So I will just leave it at that. I don't lose my temper much, but you want to convince us how to do something, that wasn't the way to do it. So let's go ahead and we can decide to vote tonight, or we can push this off to the next meeting. We've had all the public comment we're going to have, so who would like to speak from the school committee? And the abstain still there.
I can start. I think that the way that Rich laid it out at the beginning of the meeting makes it very simple, very clear what the limitations of this policy change are going to be. And I haven't heard anything convincing tonight about how that could possibly be detrimental to students. So I think we should move forward with our proposed policy.
So I'm comfortable voting tonight if somebody wants to make a motion.
Yeah,
But if people want to push it off too, I don't need to, but
I just want to say one thing. People who didn't hear at the beginning, although Dr. Dillon was very clear about it, even though we couldn't share the screen tonight, the mandate was, the recommendation for the mandate was taken off the table for a different recommendation, and I think a lot of people didn't hear that. Now, the school committee could not take his recommendation, but just to be clear, that Peter, do you just want to repeat?
Yeah, so let me read it one more time. And this is slightly different than what originally went around in the email. And I'll read it in its entirety and then I'll state that again. But I think either some people wrote remarks before hearing this or came to the meeting late, so they didn't hear me share this. So in many cases, people were arguing against something that neither I nor the school committee are proposing, right? So I want to try to clear that up. The Berkshire Hills Regional School District School Committee and schools are encouraging all age-eligible students to obtain a vaccination against COVID-19. Our intent is to do everything we can to keep our schools open. Failure to obtain a vaccination will not result in exclusion from school. Families may submit medical or religious exemptions to schools to be reviewed by the superintendent. However, unvaccinated students must participate in weekly pool testing to participate in extracurricular activities, including sports, student government, performing arts, clubs that meet outside of the school day, and school-sponsored events. So the two changes, just to reiterate, are reminding people that they can submit medical or religious exemptions. The process to submit a medical exemption is to get a healthcare provider to do it. The process to do a religious exemption, and you can look this up on the internet, is just to state that it's your sincerely held belief to not get a shot. And then the second part was unvaccinated students must participate in weekly pool testing, which is already the case. So really the major shift here, and it's not a huge shift, is that the district and the schools are encouraging all age-eligible students to obtain a vaccination. When we last talked about this, only about half the students were eligible.
More discussion or a motion, either way.
The only thing I would add there, because I do feel comfortable that in light of what everyone has said, that nothing in there is taking away choice. But I would still, the one thing that I think I did pick up on is that things and situations vary greatly from school to school and depending on the age of the child. And so following up with what Rich also said at the beginning of the meeting, I do still think it's very important to go back to each of the administrators of the school to get further thoughts on what they feel could or should be done in terms of keeping overall safety and engagement at each of their schools. And I think that that's one piece that's missing from the policy. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the policy, but I would like to see it as a next step.
Okay, one little thing that I agree with you. The administrators are comfortable with this. That's part of why we revised it this way. But every week every couple of weeks when we have a school committee meeting, we do an update on COVID-19 anyway. We can have some of that be part of our conversation, right? It's one thing to hear about the data and the number of cases. It's a whole nother thing to talk about where we're having success and where there are areas for growth and how they continue to innovate to try to make it better.
I think the only change I would ask for is that the pool testing not only apply to students participating in extracurriculars, but all students in schools. And that's.
Other discussion?
I don't know, is that possible to?
I like the idea. I don't know if we have the capacity to double or almost triple our pool testing.
Well, the high school, you're only talking about
15%.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, that's different. He said all students.
No, sorry, excuse me. So
All
the unvaccinated
Okay,
students. So
that's
the current policy is that the unvaccinated students would only have to pool test in order to participate in extracurriculars, but that all unvaccinated students must participate in order to attend school.
One thing that does is makes it, and Peter may disagree with me, life in the school as an administrator much easier. You don't have to figure out who's participating and then who's pool testing. You just have to figure out who's unvaccinated.
And also who's producing what? I mean, you play soccer in the fall and then you're a couple months off and now you're in the play and then.
And all of a sudden you decide to join the quiz team if there still is one and you gotta go in there and the administrator doesn't realize that you decided to join. I mean, it just seems like to make it easier.
But my only slight concern about it is some families talked about and I don't even want to repeat the word, right? But kids being separated in some way. And vaccinated kids can choose to participate in pool testing, and many do. To only pool test the unvaccinated students might
Stigmatize.
But if you're allowing vaccinated students to pool test,
You don't know.
You don't know what you're getting.
20 kids go down for the pool test. No one knows which ones are the vax kids and which ones aren't.
And then the only other thing I'll toss out is, and this part I'd like to talk to a lawyer about. I think we can mandate it for extracurriculars because we control those, but I don't know that we can mandate it for school.
Mm-hmm. Right, we can encourage it, I think, and I think there can be a lot of encouragement that goes with it.
That may be the better language, right?
To encourage it for all kids who are not vaccinated. And we can have a bunch of kids stand up and say, you know, I want to stand with my classmates, and so I'm going to tell my parent to sign me up for pool testing, just so that you don't differentiate between the unvaccinated and vaccinated kids.
And I think also what Rich said at the beginning is that this is a policy and we need to give the administration leeway as to how it's going to be implemented. And so what you're saying is, I'm pretty sure that the administrators will say, okay, we're going to encourage everybody to be involved in pool testing. We're going to encourage that. How they encourage it would be up to each building's
Well, that's why I would like to hear that, right? And not just have it be a little bit of their good news that they're sharing as we're going around, but an actual agenda item that they're sharing and presenting on what other things they think would be prudent to do at their individual schools, given their individual populations, et cetera.
Well, so there's another question. Rich was talking about this at the beginning. You set policy and then principals implement procedures and practices at the building level. So a question is, do you want a sentence in this policy that says we encourage all unvaccinated students to participate in pool testing, and then leave the details to how it's implemented to the building principals and me?
Here's an idea. Why don't you take all language about sports, all language about pool testing out, and add, the administration shall take all reasonable measures to ensure that every student in the Berkshire Hills Regional School District becomes vaccinated. And then you folks can report to us every other week on the reasonable measures you are taking to that goal.
Rich, are there any reasonable measures for people who don't want to get vaccinated? I mean, is there an end game to that, really?
I'm sure there is, and that's why they'll use reasonable measures, and it shall ensure that everyone is, because we can't ask them to do that. But I want to hear what they're doing to encourage and educate people to get vaccinated. I mean, some of the comments and the alleged facts I heard at the meeting tonight tell me that there's a lot of education that needs to go on in our community.
Is it vaccination as well as stopping spread?
It has to be both, right?
Yeah, Christie, go ahead. Christie, are you there?
Did you promote her?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She was there and then
She was there and then she disappeared.
Hopefully she'll come back. There she is. So here,
come on. She's.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Christy Farina, principal, Monument Mountain. I had two comments I wanted to make connected to your conversation about pool testing. One, you were just talking a little bit about pool testing. Right now, we're requiring unvaccinated students who are participating in activities, and there was some discussion about whether or not it might be worthwhile considering pool testing all unvaccinated students. I don't have a particular opinion on it, but I did just want to point out that if an unvaccinated student is already registered for pool testing and a pool comes back positive, we can immediately begin test and stay with them because we already have consent for testing. If they are not registered for pool testing, we do actually have to call parents and have the students go home and quarantine and then work on getting consent for testing. So that's if an unvaccinated student is identified as a close contact of someone who is positive. So there's just that added advantage of unvaccinated students already being signed up for pool testing that I just wanted to highlight for the committee to consider. The other piece of this that I do want to just highlight, and quite a few of the people who spoke this evening spoke to this, and that is that we are having both vaccinated and unvaccinated people at this point show up as positives. It's not just our unvaccinated. So when you guys were talking about risk associated to students, particularly in sports, right now, we're at a state where vaccinated students are not required to participate in pool testing to participate in sports. And those students could potentially be carriers and they're not being required to participate in pool testing. And I think that's something in the context of this conversation that the committee should consider. Thank you.
I agree. I think all students should be participating in pool testing. If we cannot do that, then I think all students participating in extracurricular activities should be getting pool tested. And I think we should be recommending vaccines.
That would take care of the segregation.
Well, we did that September through how many October.
We did, and then we backed out of it. Yeah.
I would just jump in one last time. I would like to say, for me, there's a distinction between students who are participating in an extracurricular activity like basketball versus ones that are participating in a virtual school government meeting. So if we could have a distinction connected to that, I think it would help us on the ground in implementation.
That's fair, and I think that's why it's so important to get each of the school administrators' input.
Yeah, because I'm not comfortable with us deciding what that distinction is. Are we gonna take every club and every sport and put a check mark next to it? That's not our job.
I'm losing the for separating the extracurriculars from the general population on whatever thing we do. On both sides, that seem to generate a little negativity on it. I hear what people are saying, that there's concern that there's greater risk in some extracurricular activities. I don't know if that's compelling enough to have a different policy for people in extracurriculars than the general population.
So here's the thing I wonder about. Do you want a policy or a motion potentially? The first sentence remains the same, right? We encourage everybody to get vaccinated. keep the schools open. Failure to obtain a vaccination will not result in exclusion from school. And we encourage everybody to participate in pool testing, period.
Yeah, and can we manage that?
I think, and like the nurses are there probably making faces, and thankfully we're in this webinar so I can't see them. They're really hardworking, they're highly effective. Even if we encourage everybody to do it, not everybody will do it. It'll be really raising the bar on our efforts, so I think it'll be hard. But if we hang our head on this notion that transmission is possible in all contexts, then having everybody do it probably makes the most sense.
I believe that the risk of transmission is different between vaccinated and unvaccinated people. And I believe that that's what the science in this current state says.
Right. The viral loads are different.
Absolutely.
And that has to do with and symptoms.
Yeah.
So we have two choices tonight. We can take a break and come back at the next meeting, or someone needs to make a motion, because I think we've talked this through pretty much. Yeah.
So I can read it one more time if that's helpful, and then somebody could say so moved.
I think we should vote tonight.
So go ahead and read it.
We need a motion if people have different opinions, they want to make amendments anyways.
Yeah, okay, exactly. So read it and then we'll see if someone.
Okay, so the Berkshire Hills Regional School District School Committee and schools are encouraging all age-eligible students to obtain a vaccination against COVID-19. Our intent is to do everything we can to keep our schools open. Failure to obtain a vaccination will not result in exclusion from schools. Families may submit medical or religious exemptions to the schools to be reviewed by the superintendent. We encourage all students to participate in pool testing.
So let me just ask one question. Do we need the medical and religious exemption if all we're doing is encouraging? No, that's, yeah.
So take that out.
All that is controversy. Right.
And then we had in the previous version, was it a mandate for pool testing for unvaccinated people for extracurriculars that now is being downgraded to a recommendation with the general public?
We encourage all students to participate in pool testing. So it's a bigger group of people, but you're right, it's less.
So remind me, what are we doing right now for if one of my relatives plays basketball and they're not vaccinated, they're required to pool test?
Yes.
So we're actually,
That doesn't say that.
This is a step down.
This is dumbing it down.
A little bit.
It's a suggestion. Suggestion. It's not a policy, it's not a mandate, it's not anything. It's a suggestion to get a shot. This is not.
So I would like to see us encourage all students to pool test, but that we require unvaccinated students.
You know, to be fair, we have talked about pool testing, we voted it in, we voted it out. We came here to talk about a vaccine mandate.
Yeah, which we're not doing.
We're back to pool testing. Yes. Like, let's get off pool testing. If somebody wants to make a separate motion about pool testing, at any time they can do that. But I think we called together a bunch of people to talk about a vaccine mandate. I think they're entitled to know what we're doing about a vaccine mandate.
Well, clearly, if we don't vote tonight on a vaccine mandate, instead vote on pool testing, we're not doing a vaccine mandate.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
Yeah. So
and I appreciate people who highlighted the use of that word mandate. You know,
can we keep the existing policy with pool testing for extracurriculars and move on this vaccine encouragement without changing that?
Yeah. And then just strongly encourage pool testing.
Certainly, and we could step up, we could do what we're doing with unvaccinated students for extracurriculars and encourage more vaccinated students to also participate.
And that doesn't have to be a policy.
I think it makes sense to mandate pool testing for all extracurriculars. And we can do it by school for monument students and for for the Du Bois students.
I mean, the other thing to do is you vote on the vaccination thing and we talk, the principals have some time to detail what the higher risk activities are, right? So virtual student government, you're just talking into your screen, there's no risk, right?
I really don't want to get into principals recommending to us, these three should have pool testing, those two don't. I think it's got to be something more general than that.
Yeah, and I think the point of it is that it's not that there's a transmission during the Zoom meeting for student government, but it's that is then a whole other subset of students, 30 or 40 students that are in the daily population that are interacting with every single student in that building that are then required to be part of that pool testing. Because I think at the end of the day, the goal is to try and get as many students tested as possible to ensure that our schools stay open and that our environment is as safe as possible.
Our goal is to get as many students vaccinated as possible.
That's goal number one.
I'd like to make a language change to the first section that I think correctly states what we're doing here today, and then we can move on to anything else. So with that, I move that it becomes the policy of the Berkshire Hills Regional School Committee that all eligible students obtain a vaccination against COVID-19. Failure to obtain a vaccination will not in any case ever result in exclusion from school. That is my motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Now, I realize that there could be other motions about pool testing, et cetera, but what Rich is doing is getting the vaccine off the table.
Yes.
Rich, so my question is, what's different from what we have in place now?
Mild language change. I think it's stronger language. It's our policy that all eligible students should obtain a vaccination against COVID-19.
Again,
all your same concerns, Sean, about there being no real teeth to this remain. I just think the language is stronger, and I think it more accurately describes this body's role in what we're doing.
So I have a motion, and I have a second. Go ahead, Sean, I'm sorry. Sean, go ahead.
No, I'm just, I honestly don't recognize the difference between what we have in place now and what we're trying to do at this point.
I don't think there is a difference. I just don't think we have a foot to stand on, right? As a school district, the lawyers and Dr. Dillon have made it clear that we have no possibility of mandating a vaccine, right? So that's not even on the table. But what this does is this creates a policy that Sean, I completely agree with you. This is not what I want, but this is all that we can do.
So I'm not sure we have anything on the table right now, like we replace.
Rich has a motion.
No, what I'm saying is, Sean keeps saying that it doesn't do anything better than what we have now. We don't have a vaccine mandate or recommendation now. We have nothing about vaccines. This would be the first thing we go down for vaccines. So there is, there's nothing right now. This formalizes our policy on vaccines.
Correct.
So, Sean, it may not have the teeth you want, or I want, or anybody else, but it does give us a stand, which we have not taken previously.
Yes. Can I just say something too? And even though this might not have any teeth, I think, and Peter brought this up the last meeting, that I've been thinking a lot about as far as responsibilities of each form of government. And it's really the state or the town Board of Health that has set vaccine mandates in the past for all the, polio, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think it's really incumbent upon them, either the Great Barrington Board of Health or the state, to act on any kind of mandate, and then we'll follow along. That's when we've gotten our guidance from all the other vaccines. But I think by setting this policy, the Board of Health as well as the state is going to know our position on it, and maybe if enough school systems do this, then that'll affect them one way or another. So I think this is our way of saying to the Board of Health and to the state, the Board of Education, et cetera, that this is how we feel, and that at some point, like every other vaccine, there might come a time where there is a mandate, and this might move it along.
I would agree with that. Yeah. So we have a motion and a second. It's a roll call vote. Ann.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Sean.
No.
Bonnie is, I don't think she joined us. Molly,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
Corey,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
and I. So if my math is still good, it's 8-1, it passes. Do I have any other motions or discussion?
I would just ask that we let the administration come up with some suggestions about pool testing for, I mean, right now, is it really the policy that if you're unvaccinated, you have to be pool tested to participate in sports?
Yes, yes,
And does somebody check that to see if you're vaccinated or unvaccinated?
yes.
I would like to know with all these children that actually do go and compete against other communities, I'd like to know the status of how many are vaccinated, how many are not.
Not sure
Teams.
that, we can try, I'm not sure that information is gonna be available.
From other teams coming in?
No, she's saying
I would like to mandate that our teams in the high school that are competing against other school districts should be vaccinated.
Yeah, so you're welcome to make that motion, I don't know if it
I
has
would make that
any
motion.
traction.
I'm waiting for Sean to make the motion that people aren't vaccinated get excluded from school.
Well, I have a motion on the table that all.
Rich, I want the original, motion to be done, but
So I have a motion on the table.
obviously there's no stomach for that from the Board of Health or this board.
So hold on.
So that's what it boils down to.
We're gonna go through some.
Yeah.
We have a motion on the table, Molly's made, that all of our high school athletes must be vaccinated. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Well, should you ever any team, because like the quiz team goes to another school, that's not an app,
Okay, so.
Any activity that involves traveling to another school, so you're trying to get
Okay,
it.
it's okay.
On a regular
That's
basis.
clear, and I have a second.
Yeah.
I for one can't support that because I think it's really segregating students and people still should have some sort of a choice, and I don't see the benefit to doing this, well, that's just me.
I think it would be more useful to know what percent of the basketball team, boys and
Get
girls,
some of the data.
are
that we
actually
collect.
immunized, right? To get some actual data for this.
And so,
Molly, would you
End
like to
goal
table your
stay the
motion to
same?
the next meeting?
Yeah, I can table my motion to the next meeting if we can get more information on this.
Okay, so do I have a
I second
second?
that. I
Yeah.
second that.
Okay, so I have a motion by Molly to table, I have a second by Corey to table, it's non-debatable. And
you go.
this is a table. It's non-debatable.
No, I just have a question.
No, so I'm not gonna debate. I have another, I wanted to talk about something else.
Okay, let's.
We have
a table motion on, and that's non-debatable, so this is the motion to table. And,
You want me to vote on this?
yes,
Yes.
Jason,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Bonnie. They're not here, sorry. Molly,
Aye.
Bill,
Yes.
Diane.
Can I ask you a question?
It's a process
It was-
question.
It's about tabling this.
Yes, that's fine, you can ask the question.
Is it about tabling the vaccination of all athletes? Is that what this is? There was so much static I couldn't hear.
Yeah, it's a vaccination of all extracurricular activities who teams travel. If I put that
So we'll
correctly.
talk about it next time.
We're gonna talk about this, we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Yep, Corey,
Yes.
Rich?
Yeah.
And yes, so it's tabled for the next meeting, and go ahead.
So the next one would be discussion of should all athletes who travel, or all groups that travel somewhere else get
Required
required to be
or off the
tested.
team.
No vaccinated.
Right.
No.
Everybody who travels away from
Both.
school gets, right, we want them to be immunized. but We
We're
want
talking about
everybody, because you can be positive and you can spread it even if you've been vaccinated. So that we do, everybody who's leaving the school to go to some other space gets tested. Gives us more information.
Not just so I'm clear, not just people who leave who are not vaccinated, we do vaccinated and unvaccinated testing.
All
Okay.
people who
Yep.
travel somewhere else to do anything are tested every week as part of food testing.
All students.
All students.
Can I say, she said vaccinated.
Yeah, I think.
Her motion is that everyone
There
who's
are
on
two
a sports
different
team.
things
We're not talking about another thing.
Oh,
I'm talking about testing.
Yes, because I wouldn't allow a motion about vaccination because we just take that. Peter, go ahead.
So we need a better answer though, because I will tell you, my response to anything on testing is that everyone should be tested.
Well, that's a clarifying question. Are you making a distinction between people that are going to Belchertown and people that are going to the Beacon Theater in Pittsfield?
If we have
Well,
the
you have to
capability.
vaccination card to go to the Beacon Theater.
Yeah, you can't go to the Beacon Theater without
Right,
vaccination. You
Right,
can't go to
so
Brewery without
Beacon
vaccination.
Theater is covered.
Half of the field trip places you want to send your kids, they are already requiring a vaccination.
So the question is.
But if we test everybody, doesn't that cover everything?
That's
Assuming
great,
we
we
have
already said
capacity?
we.
But you told us earlier we can't test everybody. We just
I
want to
said,
test.
I don't know, I gotta look into it.
Yeah,
That's why-
that's why it's a good idea to take.
So here's my other question. I think implicit in Molly's thing that got tabled was you want me to come back with data around so I know that aggregate vaccination rate 7 to 12 is 85%, right? And I'll make up teams we don't have, so I don't single anybody out. But the water polo team might have 12 people and have a 60% vaccination rate, right? And the badminton team has 4 people and has a 50% vaccination rate. If I share that, I'm sort of outing.
Only out some big groups
Like
that you
spring,
pick some
the fall, the
Right.
winter, spring.
Go ahead and pick
Okay.
cross
See,
country with
Yeah,
hundreds
that's
of
fine. For me, it doesn't matter because we're 85% at the high school. If you've taken some math courses and you all have, all the teams are going to be reflective of somewhere 85%. Are we going to punish a team if that one team is only at 40%?
It's useful to know, were those teams that participate in the fall, did they have 95% vaccination?
There were very different rates, right? So, and I happened to study that one, but the soccer team was in the 90s
Yeah.
and the football team was in the 60s, I believe.
Okay.
And
That's not hovering around 85.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
not very.
Well, but I'd like to know what we're gonna, so I'd like to know what we're gonna do when we get the data. Are we actually gonna start to pick on teams and say this team has to be tested for that?
Bottom line, this is really not just about sports. This is about our school and our community. It's not just about sports.
Okay, do I have any other motion? Yeah, go ahead.
I have one.
Yes.
It seems to me that the distinction between extracurriculars and school is that teams travel together for long periods of time. They practice together for long periods of time. The band would be together for a long period of time if they're doing a concert. And I think it makes sense to test everyone vaccinated or not vaccinated. And maybe the distinction doesn't need to be, is this team more likely to spread things? Because I think it just has to do with people spending a lot of time together. And so if we make a rule about testing kids who are in groups for long periods of time, that to me is the distinction.
I absolutely agree with you on that. Anyone else before we adjourn tonight?
Who's gonna do all this testing? 3 nurses?
3.5 nurses and the group that comes in, right? Clearly, what I have to do is, if I have it in me tomorrow, is talk to the nurses and say, what would it do if instead of testing 250 people at the high school, we started testing 520?
Does it have to be a nurse? Can it be trained volunteers?
I can't speak to that now. There's like,
But it's worth finding out.
so
That could be
exactly.
a game changer.
For the next meeting, if the administration can come with us with, first of all, advice from legal counsel, whether we can mandate testing of all students, what we would need in order to have that be successful in terms of resources, money, positions, and if that is at all possible.
So our recorder has her hand up. I'm assuming this is a process question. Christine?
Hi, yeah, it is. Ann, did you actually make a motion in the midst of all of that?
No, she did not.
No.
No, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Here's
And
an-
I realize someone else has their hand up. but
Here's an
public
idea.
comment is over with.
Here's an idea.
Yes.
We could do the mandatory testing for all these extracurricular activities. But however, any team or group that has a vaccination rate over 90 would be exempt from the pool testing.
I think that's.
I think the important part that we've heard is that even though you're vaccinated, you could be still be transmitting and carrying.
The point, again, the point is, it's about the school and the whole community. It's not about sports.
Right.
It's a motivation to get people to get vaccinated by saying, hey, you want to do this? You want to do the special stuff after school? This is your motivation to do it.
Yeah, especially, I kind of agree with Sean, and I do think, and Peter picked up on this originally, that once we start parsing between sports and activities and the general population, it creates bad feelings. So like it should be one size. And by the way, and as somebody pointed out, or you know, it's like all the kids go and get together after school. I agree that some of the sports are more high whatever, but whatever these kids who, when they're done with their sports, go and do in their cars is probably just as intense.
So I would say there's two things for us to think of.
That's not what I'm saying.
I think there's two things for us to think about.
It's getting too late for me.
I think there's two things for us to think about for the next meeting. One of those is protecting our students. That's what this is all about, right? But the second is to do this in a way that we don't separate students, we don't segregate.
Yeah.
And when we get, in all due respect to Molly's motion, which has been tabled, and I shouldn't be talking about, but I will because it's late. but we're now separating into little teams, and instead of trying to have inclusion, we're excluding. And so I really think we got to think about how to do this in a way that's safe, but doesn't segregate.
Well, and one thing I may come back to you with after I talk to the nurses is whether it's volunteers or some other resources. If we're gonna expand what we're doing, we might need to apply grant funds to support that.
Well, yeah, so Peter, my big question is everybody says and acts as though testing is for free. How much longer do we have testing funding from the state?
I think till the end of the school year, but there's, I need to gather some more information around the increase in time to double the testing that we're doing. But from the lab perspective, it's covered.
The other thing that hopefully in the new year we have more access to is affordable and accessible rapid tests. Because I think there's something out there right now that it's going to potentially be covered by insurance.
I would like to just state something. I don't look at my motion as exclusion. I look at my motion as protecting our community with the members of our community that are going into other communities. So I do not look at this as exclusion. This is protection.
Thank you, Molly.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Right now,
So we have funding for testing until the end of the year.
The school year, yeah, till June.
End of the school year. After that, there's no guarantee that we have funding for testing at all.
I would think we should.
I imagine if the pandemic drags on, that the funding will continue to be there, and if miraculously it's resolved, then we won't need it. But candidly, like, we're going to be doing this for a while.
Yeah. And anyone else have anything to say? We are by unanimous consent adjourned.